Tons of stories have dropped this past 24 hours, so I'll be releasing a double upload to get through all the reports. For this video, I'll be discussing the latest around Reece James. I'll be talking about Pochettino's future. To give you guys a quick heads up, the main part of the video I'll be keeping at the end. I'm going to have like the time segments in case you guys want to skip there straight away. I respect your time because we'll discuss the future surrounding Pochettino at this football club. So my friends, hit that like button, share your thoughts and opinions, and without wasting any more time. So right now, my friends, let's discuss the latest news surrounding Premier League votes around amortisation, because today we've got the results of the vote, and today clubs have voted on the limit to which transfer fees can be spread over a contract's length, with the new length now being up to 5 years, which is basically identical to the rule change that we saw earlier during the summer from UEFA. So as we've known for a long time, we exploited this loophole, and the reason why we exploited it was because we had over $1 billion to invest in the squad. Other clubs don't have that type of money to just take advantage of this loophole. The whole point spreads players' contracts over many years, giving these guys 7.5-year deals, 8.5-year deals, plus more, was so we could buy tons of players in a short amount of time. Today, 15 clubs voted for this rule change, and is it any surprise that we were one of the clubs, of course, who voted for closing this loophole? Obviously, we're going to do that. We have to take advantage, and we don't want any other competitors taking advantage of this loophole. Now, you know, earlier during the day, some reports came out suggesting that a lot of the clubs who were voting for this rule change were kind of hoping that once the rule was implemented, maybe it could be backdated to last summer. And if that was the case, we would be screwed. But of course, that wasn't the case. It wouldn't make any sense. And if anything, it's a reminder of how ruthless clubs are like at the board level. The competition is absolutely real. But before I move on, there's one other interesting rule change that was added today that isn't getting too much light. And basically it comes down to this. If any Premier League clubs owe a substantial debt to another Premier League club or any EFL clubs, throughout the league divisions, now they won't be allowed to register signing new players until that substantial debt has been paid off. And you know, if clubs are struggling to pay off any debts to each other, you'll see things like a deduction from the league prize money at the end of the season to help cover these debts. So they were the two interesting rule changes that got implemented today. As we know, this loophole is now officially closed off. It won't be happening. We can still offer guys, 7-year deals. It just means that we must cover them up to the tune of 5 years now. Now let's discuss the latest news surrounding Reece James. We've got some confirmation around his injury, and as we've all kind of known, Reece James has suffered another hamstring injury, and the reports coming in suggest that he may be out until January, February, so for the next 3 months. And this is now his third consecutive hamstring injury, and each one he's suffering with now, the recovery time is taking longer and longer and longer. Now, listen, I'm going to reiterate this again. I'm just a YouTuber. I'm not going to talk like I have any medical advice to give. I know there's talks about Reece James just simply getting surgery, but I don't know the full extent of his hamstring injury. Where the injury is, in his hamstrings. Any of these types of details to really understand what to do. Even though some reports coming out from The Guardian have suggested that there is a possibility that surgery could be explored. But naturally, if that is the option that is taken, it would mean that Reece James would be out for more than 3 months. So, for me, it's about the long term. If that decision is made, this season looks like a write-off. And I feel like he's signed a multi-year contract like, last summer. There's still many years ahead for Reece James at this football club. He is our captain. And if he decided that, listen, I need to take this season out to focus on my long-term health for future seasons, then I would understand and respect that decision. I've seen some comments about people suggesting it's time to sell Reece James. He's not consistent. I think you're making those comments in reaction. Of course, you're making the comments in the present, because the reality is simply this, yeah? If you guys were right, Reece James won't be going down another level. He won't be signing for an Aston Villa or a Brighton. Big clubs will take advantage of being able to sign him for a reduced fee, and I guarantee he will come back for them, and people will be regretting these types of comments in the future. But I'd imagine that Reece James is feeling very frustrated. You know, it's very easy for us to, you know, be fans, be a bit selfish and be like, why is our best player never available? It's getting annoying. But, you know, for the player himself to constantly be going through this process of the same rehabilitation programs, the same, you know, fitness courses, you know, not getting minutes on the field, it must be hard mentally. And we know that players or anyone who goes through like significant injuries or surgeries, I'm sure some of you guys have had them, you know, that process of recovery can be quite hard. I can relate. You know, I had surgery like 2 years ago, and it took me at least like nearly 2 months to get back to full speed. So I always have sympathy for anyone that goes through that, if you're a player, if you're not. I guess questions are now going to pose around what Pochettino does now that he doesn't have his captain, potentially for this season, potentially, we just don't know right now. Gusto, we don't know when he's coming back, but he should be back quite soon. I don't think I can go through seeing Cucurella playing right back again. Listen, it works against teams that are better than you, where you need a defensive guy, but for teams where you need the width to be held, you need a natural right back or right footed player that can play in both boxes. So now, what is the solution? You know, could we see a midfield player or someone who's out of position to play there? I don't think Disasi is a long-term option, playing right back either. We have some interesting academy guys that we could turn to. And I think to myself sometimes, you know, when big clubs have these injury crises, should you not be turning to what you already have? I feel like that's just part of the sport, right? I mean, other clubs do that, but for us, there's a reluctance to ever do that. We've got two interesting guys. You know, Josh Brookins is having a decent season for the development team. And of course, we have a very young, talented right back, right wing back in Josh Kofi at Chimpong. And, you know, he's tall. Time will tell, but right now, Reece James, you know, we support you. You know, come back strong, take your time, think about the long term, and you know what I mean. Hopefully, you come back stronger and fitter. And for the main part of the video, I wanted to leave this part right to the end. Let's discuss the future surrounding Mauricio Pochettino, because currently the club are still backing Poch. Now, as I said for myself, the sporting directors and Stewart and Winsley, they were the ones who picked Pochettino. They have control when it comes to deciding how the squad and this club can be shaped. So if they got the management decision wrong, it looks bad on them. So all they can do is give more time to Pochettino, to be fair with you. For this part of the video, I'm going to be referencing reports that came out from the Telegraph, the Daily Mail, and a few others when it comes to giving you guys the contextual scoop behind what's happening right now. And as reported by many outlets, you know, 2023 has been seen as a disastrous season. Now, behind the club, you know, behind the scenes, you know, things like the stadium development plans, network club models, you know, getting new sponsors, you know, new business relations, that's going well. That's actually going good. It's only everything happening on the field is going absolutely terribly right now. Throughout 2023, we've only got 9 wins currently. We've only secured around 39 points. And if you were to look at the league table from, you know, when this year started to how it's ending, we'd be like 15th place in the league. So it's a reflection of where we are right now. It's not great. We spent tons of money on big name signings in the summer. We sold a lot of players and loaned a lot of guys to you know, cut down the size of the squads. And it seems like there's question marks around the strategy in terms of helping us build and grow. Now, there is belief that, you know, in the long term, a lot of the young guys we've signed will probably turn out goods. Hopefully, we're not killing their development with how inconsistent we are right now. But it's interesting that Pochettino, as we know from yesterday, is calling for a new striker, a new midfield player, a new centre-back, and potentially now even a new goalkeeper, depending on how severe Sanchez's injury is. And obviously, Petrovic is the only backup goalkeeper, and outside of him, we don't have many options. But I'm going to say this quickly, you know, back in the day, and I'm sounding hella old saying that, but I remember when guys like Petrovic and Kudagini were out, you would just give game time to Hilario. And I remember we had some very like cult moments with Hilario, especially the games against Barcelona, where he was written off in the press, written off by everyone. And he was so clutch for us during that period he was in the team. He used to kind of be like that. But I guess these days now, you just buy your way out of any inconvenience that you face throughout the season. But regardless though, as we know, if we hope to sign anyone in January, it's going to fall upon a few things. Number one, it seems like we will be restructuring how we view our wage budget right now. we're not inclined to be offering players deals over 150k a week. But if you hope to sign a top striker, let's say you're desperate for Osimhen or Tone, and you don't have Champions League football to offer, the only thing that can work in your favour is giving these guys stupid money to entice them to sign. So let's see if we break that. But I guess what's going to give us some flexibility in terms of spending in January naturally is selling players, which naturally means that you're selling more academy grads. Now, you know, we came close to selling Maatsen for like over 30 mil in summer deadline day. We were getting offers of like around 42.5 million plus add-ons from West Ham for Conor Gallagher. And obviously Jalaba had a lot of interest too from Bayern, Dortmund, and he's now getting interest from Roma. And it seems like he's getting fitter, which potentially means that, you know, clubs will come in to sign him again in January. So again, where would we be without any of the Cobham grads that we've been selling? Because they're the ones who are single-handedly allowing us to buy. Of course, how can I forget? Armando Broja is also a potential guy that could be sold. And even Madueke, he's barely even played here or had much time to really show what he's fully about. So it seems like we are going to get ruthless to help Pochettino. But I guess here's where I want to get all your opinions, you know, get involved in this conversation. I'm going to give mine right now. And even though on one hand, I understand why Pochettino would want to have more signings in his favour, do I fully agree with it from a principle perspective? If there's a few things that I sympathise for all Chelsea managers that we've had over the past few years, is that their preparation gets affected. You know, you see that during pre-season. You know, how often do signings get completed before pre-season even starts? You know, outside of that, they get non-stop injuries as well too at the wrong times, and it creates this condition where they consistently have to adapt outside of their main game plan to have to accommodate all the deficiencies they're faced with in the squad. And I can accept that. Let's be serious. You do need a relative level of consistency to compete and win. If Man City or Liverpool's and Madrid's had injury crises like what we've had over the past few years, would they be competing at the highest level and their highest potential? Absolutely not. But outside of that though, it's also an argument that during times of hardship, this is where managers must show what they're really about as well too. And the fact that many of them really struggle when they can't really implement game plan 1, what does that really say? I look at Pochettino and it makes me think about Postecoglou at Spurs. Now, listen, Spurs have been hit with a bit of an injury crisis, suspensions. They had a lot of centre-backs that were out. But did Ange decide to completely go against Spurs' way of playing and his identity to accommodate for these weaknesses and shortcomings in the squad? No, he kept on playing the Spurs way. And listen, they haven't won every single game, but recently they beat Newcastle 4-1. And the one benefit that comes from sticking to your guns and your resolve is the fact that you keep the confidence in the squad high. Because if they still feel like they can win outside of all this hardship, that confidence won't go down and it will come back in times where you need it once players start coming back. Whereas us, on the other hand, I look at Pochettino, I look at that recent game versus Everton. You know, make sure you guys watch my What We Learned video from last night. But I feel like he exasperated all our issues with poor tactics and poor management. You know, I'm sorry, like, I remember Pochettino was the guy that was renowned for having fullbacks that would like enter the final third, like your Danny Rose at Spurs, and he would really like commit to that idea. He was showing the same similarities during pre-season, yet when Ben's out the team or when one guy's out the team, he's completely gone against that principle. He's introduced using centre-backs at left-back. There's not been much upside to this tactic. It's not even helping us compete that much better aerially in terms of like stopping goals from crosses, from corners, from set pieces. And if anything, it just kind of ruins and affects what we can do in the final third. Because I think one of the hardest things you can do in football is coach your team on how to have an attacking identity and how to score. I think it's easier to coach a defense compared to an attack. And I feel like if you're not going to commit to the team really understanding how to break teams down, I mean, when are they ever going to learn that? Like, you have to wait until Nkunku and Ben and all your big boys come back to the team before you can really start to show what your attacking ideas are about. That doesn't make sense to me. That's too much perfection you're hoping for. And then you're left with a season where you got an amalgamation of all these deficiencies that you can't really manage effectively. I don't think that's good enough. And I've been thinking about this for a while now. Listen, I know Ian Maatsen, for example, he's not the finished article, but are you telling me that you couldn't have utilised him in that Danny Rose type of role on the left-hand side when we've needed an overlapping option this whole season, and you've had someone on the bench out the squad that you're not turning to? For what reason? How does that help the whole team? I don't really understand it. You see a reluctance from Pochettino as well to use two strikers up front, especially in games where we're behind. You've seen a reluctance for him to even use academy grads sparingly, at least, just to at least give a bit more rest for first team players. You're going into certain games where players are fatigued already, and then you're acting surprised by that. And also, I would criticize our set piece defending. Listen, if you know that your midfield isn't great aerially, why do we keep encouraging the opposition to be able to put in tons of corners against us, put in, tons of crosses? We don't close down crosses early enough. With Tuchel, for example, one of the things that was amazing about his defensive system in particular was that we would stop the crosses coming in, your Rudigers, your Bens, your Aspies, your Jameses. It was very strong. And also, I feel like we get done by too many set-piece creative routines from opposition teams, and it's like I'm not seeing any improvement in dealing with that, and we keep encouraging these teams to target one of our weaknesses. I'm going to have a video going into greater detail coming out later this week. Like I said, I've got sympathies if you don't have Karns and Nkunku, but at the same time, come on, Poch. You must be controlling your controllables a lot better. It's too easy to go into the market and then you're going to disrupt the squad's balance by signing, 3 stars that's going to replace other guys, and you're going to be undermining the project in which you entice most of these guys to sign long-term deals or to even sign for the club, because it was all about youth, and you're showing a reluctance to really want to embrace, what comes with using youth players. I keep saying this all the time, but more expensive Dortmund, a more expensive Brighton, and we don't want to attack with that youthful exuberance like those teams do. I understand we'll concede more, but for me, after seeing our struggles in the final third for 3 years now, you're not going to win games if you don't know how to score right. So let's see what happens. It seems like even if we lose against Sheffield United and if we get kicked out of the Carabao Cup, reports suggest that Pochettino should still remain. So if he's going to get backed in the market, this is a massive call for support. It means that he can't be getting sacked at a later point during the season if it doesn't work, because you've committed now. And if it doesn't work out this time, the consequences that will come in the future will be even more severe than anything we're seeing currently. So my friends, this is the first video out the way. Share your thoughts and opinions. I'm in EFC, this is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.